With the 22nd selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Rex Grossman, quarterback, University of Florida.
Well, I segued nicely to quarterback, didn't I? And we were talking to Mike Shanahan, and we'll talk about Grossman in a moment. Let's go back now to Denver and rejoin.
Selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Willis McGahee, running back, University of Miami.
Hey there!
Yeah!
You can hear it from Orchard Park. Let's go Buffalo! Wow!
Hey, Chris.
Wow!
Chris, I can tell you from talking to Tom Donahoe, who is the president and general manager of the Buffalo Bills, as I said, in Donahoe's mind, he may have been the top-rated player in this draft before the injury, and their doctors have said that it's a great surgery that the doctors did on this knee, that it's sound. They expect him to make a full recovery, and they will redshirt him this year. I'm almost certain it's basically, they have Travis Henry for the next 2 years.
And they got Olandis Gary to back up
at least for another year. So
well, I tell you, it's a courageous move. And what they did, they got a great football player who they know right now is not going to play with them next year. Look at these cuts. I mean, inside moves, outside. I mean, obviously, number 1, 2, 3, depending on you look at it, as a number 1 player, number 2, and number 3 in an entire country. Balance, speed, power. He has it all, and now he's a Bill.
And that was when he was healthy, Denny. What's he going to be coming back off that serious knee injury? And you look at, we said, what organization would have the guts to take Willis McGahee? A team with 2 picks or a team with a general manager that's so strong in Tom Donahoe, thinking for the future, knowing he has Travis Henry and Olandis Gary, yet thinking I can do better. This guy reverts back to the form he showed as a 2nd or 3rd overall pick. Put him on the shelf for the year. This is a team will do that this season. Let him develop, let him get back to 100%, not see any action on the field, and be possibly their running back for 2004.
On artificial turf. Difference? Good, bad, otherwise?
I don't think it'll make a difference. I mean, the way people rehab now, absolutely, Robert Smith's a great example. Rehabilitation is so fantastic now. The most difficult thing is making sure that Willis doesn't rush it. He doesn't rush it. That's what it comes down to.
Tom Donahoe won't allow that.
Well, and I tell you, that's important because, like I said, you know, with Bill Walsh and Kevin Fagan, Dave Platt said, hey, 2 years before you come back. In this case, somebody's got to say, Willis, I know you're doing a great job, but we're not looking for you to play until 2004. Let's get on a schedule and stay on that schedule.
And Ray, this was a gift pick. Remember, they didn't have a number 1 because they got Bledsoe. I mean, New England got their pick and they got Bledsoe last year. Then they got this one, which was Atlanta's, because of Peerless Price trade. And I don't think there was a player that really excited them at this spot, but this guy does, and he obviously has the courage and the patience.
So you figure if they had it all along, they don't. It's a gift pick. What?
With the 24th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Dallas Clark, tight end, University of Iowa.
But I didn't complete my sentence because everything was running around. It was a different tight end than we were talking about, Witten. Dallas Clark, tight end, which goes.
Pre-NFL Draft, the New York Giants select William Joseph, defensive tackle, University of Miami.
Well, the first indication from Giant fans is that they like it.
Well, you know what? I think the reason the pick came in so quickly is because they couldn't believe that he was the last of the big-time defensive linemen.
Right.
Obviously, they probably had him ranked right in the middle of about 8 or 9 guys. And when you get that, you know that this guy can play. He's got real big size. He fits the kind of defensive lineman they like.
And Denny, I think you look at earlier, of course, the general manager hit the jackpot with Jeremy Shockey. You go back to that Miami program with all those top prospects. This kid was considered a potential top 5 to 10 pick. Going into the year, he drops all the way down to 25 because he didn't have that great dominating senior season. Dropped from 10 sacks in 2001 to 5 sacks this past season. But a guy that is a big run-stopping defensive tackle potentially. Does have some quickness, and they need somebody on that interior with Keith Hamilton coming off the injury list.
Keith Hamilton had the torn Achilles tendon, really his career in jeopardy, and there was no doubt for Ernie Accorsi, the general manager, that he was going to go up and fix that defensive line.
Go 49ers select Quam Harris, tackle, Stanford University.
There you go. One of your guys.
Well, doesn't have to move very far.
So they took tackle, huh? They took a Stanford tackle from down the road.
Well, you know what? I think he was rated a lot higher. So when you're sitting here and you're picking at 26, you look at this big guy here. He can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. He has excellent feet. He's a very smart and intelligent player. Obviously, he's right down the road. Like with Detroit and Rodgers, they should know more about him than anybody else, and they need offensive linemen, and they had it rated very high.
Well, they've got an aging line, right? Especially at the tackle position. Derek Deese has really been a good player, our favorite, Derek Deese. And Greg, I mean, they thought this was one of the areas.
He's a physically gifted player. You got a guy 6'7", 310 pounds, who in certain games dominated. In other games, looks like a very mediocre player who struggled against guys that he should consistently dominate. He's got to get a little stronger. He's got to be more consistent game to game and take his play to the next level, which he's certainly capable. That's a roll of the dice pick. I mean, you could hit the jackpot. You could have a Pro Bowler. You could have a major bust. At this stage of the first round, you could argue it's worth the gamble. Because you're talking about a guy here that has so much talent. Had he gone back, may have been a top 10 pick had he played to that level. But this year, Mort, I viewed him as a major underachiever who is still going to be one of those guys. You never know what you're getting. If he decides that the light goes on and he gets motivated and he's consistent, got yourself a player.
Well, right now they have starters there. I mean, right now. I mean, they're okay there. And by the way, it's spelled, you thought it was a relative of the Schwam, but it's Quaim Harris. And apparently very funny and humorous, intelligent, obviously, right?
As they say.
We'll call him Kwame.
So, Quaim Harris now selected by the 49ers, which means we have Kansas City, Tennessee, and Green Bay next. We now just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks left in the first round. Joining us now from about 8 miles across the river, Ernie Accorsi, general manager of the Giants, with our Coors Light video conferencing. And Ernie, you showed some amazing speed that Kiper did not have you clocked for. The way that card came up for William Joseph, could you believe he was there?
Well, everybody says that, Boomer, but we were happy with that. You know, there were 10 defensive linemen picked. I think we were the 10th selection, 9 before us in the first 18 picks. So with 7 to go, we were really concerned at that point that our top choices would be gone.
The Giants made moves last year, certainly in the first round, the guy that you got, the tight end, Shockey. Everybody knows what he did. But I thought one of the most intriguing moves that you made off season, you changed everything on special teams, didn't you? Kicker, punter, long snapper, Brian Mitchell. You didn't stop, did you?
I think we covered every base, and we certainly want to improve our coverage team also. So, you know, obviously we needed help there. And we also thought we needed depth in the defensive line, so we've addressed some issues.
Well, Ernie, we're going to join you a little bit later. We appreciate you joining us. You got your guy Joseph, and again, you fooled Kiper with your clock. When we return, the Chiefs, Tennessee, Green Bay.
With the 27th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Larry Johnson, running back, Penn State.
2,000 yards for Joe Paterno last year. 4 Penn State, 4 Miami, and there it is. I mean, there it is.
Well, Chris, he averaged 8 yards a carry. I mean, the kid had a heck of a year. Only 375 yards rushing as a junior, and then over 2,000 yards this past season. And when you say he was contained against Ohio State, Michigan, and the like in those 3 games, well, he still caught the ball effectively out of the backfield. The offensive line at Penn State didn't have a dominant player, and he still put up over 2,000 yards. That's a credit to his hard-charging running style. He's a multi-dimensional player as well, can catch, can block. And I'll tell you what, for Kansas City's defense, like we said, to be as bad as it was, it's a shame, but Priest Holmes, you have to be concerned now to bring a running back into the fold at this point and not go defense more.
Well, it does obviously scream out that we are concerned about Priest Holmes.
Well, meanwhile, Larry Johnson is a guy that I know only 1 year did that, but, you know, how do we project him? I mean, running backs are easier to make a big splash in year 1 than most other positions.
Well,
right,
they
Dennis?
really are. And what I'm surprised is that there are so many running backs. I mean, what this guy can do is what a lot of the other guys can do, too. A lot of these guys can run. You're getting great value. And so you're going to see teams who got what they want in the first round are going to get the next backs in the late first and second round, and they're going to love the players that they get at running back.
I just want to throw this in. Larry Johnson won the Maxwell Award in Philadelphia for the top college player. And in his acceptance speech, he talked about the pictures and the paintings around the room of the old-time football players and showed that he had respect. I went around, he said, everybody in the room, look at these pictures, look at these guys, learn about them, because that's what built some pro football. I say that because Ron Jaworski's, we go up to you, and Merrill Hodge, who studied Larry Johnson, we go up to you and Mark Malone at the EA Sports Desk. I know we all were impressed with well, his thoughts that night.
Well, I'll tell you what, Boomer, obviously when you look at his background, his father, the defensive line coach at Penn State, he grows up in a football coach's house. He understands the game, has an appreciation for the history of the game. As a running back, give me a sense of how this guy's going to fit in. And by the way, Kansas City did a great job. They moved down 11 picks, still get a guy like Larry Johnson.
You know, and going to the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to be a dual threat. And I think Larry Johnson can be a dual threat. He's a terrific runner out of the backfield as long as he's going downfield and he's downhill. The one negative I did see with Larry Johnson, which is going to have to be addressed, he always carries the ball in the right hand. Doesn't matter if he goes to the left or the right, it is constantly in the right hand. He did put the ball on the ground a lot at Penn State. In the National Football League, you cannot have turnovers. What they will have to do is they'll have to establish confidence in him when he's a directional left run, put it in the left hand. Doesn't mean he has to dominate the left hand carry all the time, but when you're going to run to the left, put it in the left hand. When you go to the right, in the right hand.
But is he a Priest Holmes type of a player, Josh?
Well, I think he can be because he can catch the football. He can pluck the ball out of the air, has good soft hands. It wasn't a very sophisticated passing game at Penn State. He's going to have to learn how to read on the move, learn how to find the voids in his own coverage, learn how to beat man-to-man coverage. But, you know, you mentioned it, Mark. You look at the Chiefs. I was on the phone with Dick Vermeil. They were ready to take Larry Johnson at 16. Right. He said the phone started ringing. They got the guy they wanted at 27, plus they get the 92nd player and the 200th player. So Carl Peterson makes a great move.
I did a couple of games and watched Larry Johnson.
With the 28th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Andre Woolfolk, defensive back, Oklahoma.
It's your corners. We talked about coming off the board now, and this is the kid who was a former wide receiver turned corner, still a little raw technically, but you look at a kid, as I said, was playing at a pretty high level as a wide receiver. He knows he has the hands, he knows he can handle that kind of thing at the pro level where you talk about getting the opportunity to make a big play. He comes down with the football, he can do some damage in the open field as well. So this is a guy with potential to be a pretty good football player. They lost Donald Mitchell in free agency to the Dallas Cowboys. You see his ability here, a former wide receiver, the ability to scoop it up and go, and I think that's where you're talking about a guy who can block some punts. He did that throughout his career, help you on coverage, on special teams, and a guy that is still a little raw. His first year, maybe his second year is when you expect him to maybe push for significant playing time, maybe in a starting role. This year, nickel-dime situations, losing Donald Mitchell like they did more. He's going to make some sense this season in that particular role.
Makes sense. It's a value pick, a little bit too high for the receiver Calico, so here's Tennessee just continuing to get better on defense.
And you saw in that last highlight, Denny, the ability to make that catch. Right. I like corners who can make the catch. You get a chance for a big play. Don't drop the football. Get the turnover. Get the ball moving in the other direction.
Don't cornerbacks used to play receiver, play defense because they can't catch the ball?
Not Wolf.
Not necessarily. And I tell you the other thing, too. They were either going to go running back, receiver, cornerback. They had to get speed. I mean, they wanted a skilled guy at a skilled position, running back, cornerback, receiver, who could really run, and that's what they got.
And so, Woolfolk, the corner to Tennessee. The Green Bay Packers are on the clock with 4 picks to go in this, the first round.
Have had problems at cornerback. What was the thought process of going first with Andre Woolfolk?
Well, you know, look what happened in the first couple picks of the round there, 2 and 3, with the big receivers. And basically what's happened is the tall corners are hard to find. And we watched Andre most of the year. He improved significantly the second half of the season, and we're very excited that he was there. There's a lot of other good corners still on the board, but we feel like from the value where we picked him, he's got a chance to be a very, very good player.
9 quarterbacks in the last 6 years, and you say they are hard to find. Why is that?
Well, there's 32 teams, and everybody needs to be 4 deep, and there's not 130 corners to go around to play in the league. That's the problem. And so, you know, we're always going to draft corners, and we're trying to draft them a little larger than we have in the past. And so this one's going to be a good fit for us. We've got 2 starters right now, and Andre Dyson, Samari Rolle. We've drafted a couple last year that we feel like we'll be able to contribute. And so we lost Donald Mitchell to Dallas in free agency, so we feel like Andre will be a good fit for us.
Jeff, just a couple of injury issues. Steve McNair and Eddie George. Start with Steve.
You know, Steve's doing great. He really, when we finished the postseason physical, Steve left in better shape than he'd been the last 3 or 4 years. Had injuries throughout the season that were well documented, but when the season was over, he felt good. Eddie has no problems whatsoever. Both are doing well this offseason, and both should be healthier than they've been the last couple of years.
Oh, it'll be great to have Javon Kearse back. He had ankle surgery. Bring us up to date on his progress.
Well, you know, we had surgery immediately after the injury in the opener last year. We weren't pleased with the way things were coming, so we went back in and we moved a screw, did a bone graft. He's doing very well. He's way ahead of where he was last year as far as the surgery is concerned. We expect him to be back on the field, perhaps as early as the end of the mini camps in June.
Jeff, good to see you. We'll see you throughout the weekend.
Okay,
Chris?
thank you.
All right, Susie and Coach Fisher, thank you very much. The Green Bay Packers selecting here at the 29th overall pick, the Pack, the Commissioner.
With the 29th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Nick Barnett, linebacker, Oregon State.
Wow. Here's a guy, Mel, Denny, and Chris, that we heard his name more the last few days as we called around. However, most people thought Boss Bailey, E.J. Henderson linebackers before him. First linebacker to go in the draft is Nick Barnett.
Chris, that was really up until this past week when you go back and you look at the combination of workouts, which were outstanding for Nick Barnett, and the fact that he very quietly led the Pac-10, the entire conference, in tackles, averaged 9.3 stops per game in the Pac-10 this past season. Guy with the physical skills. He's 6'2", 235. He's been running 4.59 to 4.63, 34.5 vertical, and did 32 reps. So he has the measurables. He had the productivity in the Pac-10. Remember here, Boss Bailey was still on the board. I thought he was overrated. I have him in the 30s. Now we're getting down into that point, but the 2 knee injuries, the fact he doesn't tackle that well, Barnett does. You saw it here. That was separating Mike Williams, fine wide receiver from USC, from the football. So Boss Bailey's still there. Nick Barnett off the board a little earlier, but if you went to ESPN.com, saw the last mock first round I put up yesterday, I had Barnett going 17 in the first round, so he was a fast-rising player. Didn't shock me of the late word we had that he would go somewhere in this particular area.
And obviously they did with the production over Boss Bailey. But, you know, Boss Bailey at Georgia, he did have the 2 knees. I know I'm speaking with Brian Van Gorder, the defensive coordinator there at Georgia. He really feels Boss Bailey's going to be a better pro than he is a collegiate guy, because he says once he gets in the weight room and work, he'll be a different guy. But he did lead Georgia in tackles. He played over the tight end. He's a 4'4" guy, what have you, a 46-inch vertical. I think that he would have been a good fit here as well, but Barnett obviously very productive.
And I think the key thing is he played a stacked linebacker. Nick Barnett was a stacked backer. That's exactly what Green Bay was looking for. He made a lot of tackles from the stacked linebacker position. They don't have to guesswork on E.J. Henderson. They don't have to guesswork on Boss Bailey, whether he can stack and run and make tackles. So they took the one of the 3 who they could see doing what he needs to do on college film.
The Green Bay Packers had a wonderful first 3 months, and the way they ended in the regular season against the Jets and then losing the first playoff game ever at Lambeau Field to Michael Vick and the Atlanta Falcons, so they go defense to try to shore things up. Well, this was Philadelphia's spot, the 30 hole, but now that, due to an earlier trade, belonged to the San Diego Chargers. Everybody in football lost a giant...
It'll be way too much pressure to bring a linebacker in to replace Junior Seau. Yes. I would go to cornerback.
Well, you got my guess. John would want it.
With the 30th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the San Diego Chargers select Sammy Davis, defensive back, Texas A&M.
Now, do we know the words? Who can make the sunrise? Sprinkle it with dew. Come on, help me out. The Candyman. The Candyman can. Sammy Davis. He's now a member of the San Diego Chargers. That's Sammy Davis Sr., I guess, right?
Yeah.
Hey, well, Sammy Davis, a fast-rising corner.
It is. They really needed a cornerback. They needed all defensive players. Like I mentioned, I think it'd be way too much pressure to bring in a linebacker to take the place of Junior Seau. Look somewhere else, and he did it.
And you had Quentin Jammer, their first-round pick last year. Denny, you had Ryan McNeil moving inside to join Rogers Beckett. And Sammy Davis is a guy who's a veteran. 36 consecutive starts to end his career, 38 starts overall, finished his career with 11 interceptions, 29 pass breakups, and a guy that I thought at times gave a little too much cushion, take more advantage and maximize that physical ability, be a little more aggressive. He did so this past season, both in coverage and in run support, became a better tackler, a run support corner this year, more so than going into this season when that was a question mark. So he rounded it off. He's got good size, 5'11 and a half, about 186 pounds, so he has the kind of height you're looking for. Ran a 4.47 at the combine, did 19 reps, and had a 40-inch vertical. So you got a cornerback nearly 6 feet tall, Denny, who vertical's 40 inches. Big wide receivers in the NFL to match up. Now you have Jammer, and now you have Sammy Davis at San Diego.
Let's just bigger picture San Diego for a minute, all right? I mentioned Junior Seau, no longer there. Rodney Harrison, another longtime Pro Bowler, now a member of the New England Patriots. Seau, Miami Dolphins. The time's changing in San Diego. That's a big move. He's a civic treasure, like Tony Gwynn.
Well, it really is. I mean, he's always going to live there, but it really came down to them having to make a decision. It was not an easy one. Obviously, it was decided a long time ago. Unrestricted free agency, salary cap, money due on April 1st. All these things.
The lower leg injuries, too.
Well, that's right. They came into play.
Seau was enduring. The lower leg injuries, and I know that Marty Schottenheimer thinks that Zeke Marino, and of course he drafted Ben Lieber last year, and Donnie Edwards are very good linebackers for them. But let's face it, if San Diego struggles this year, and Seau has a big year with the Dolphins, that could be a big if, then it's going to come back and bite them, I think.
Well, they got a running back, they got a quarterback, and they got David Boston at receiver. So that's another division, like the AFC's, where Buffalo was last at 8-8, that AFC West, which is competitive from top to bottom. A guy that won his division going away last year was Mike Sherman, the GM coach of the Green Bay Packers, joining us now on the video conferencing from Green Bay. And Mike, you waited a long time, and have you ever seen no linebackers go? I mean, were you surprised that you had your pick of linebackers picking that low at 29?
Well, this was a player, Chris, that we identified a long time ago as someone who could come in and impact our defense. Feel like he has great pass coverage skills. He's an every down linebacker. Had him rated as the top linebacker in the draft, so we're excited to be able to get him at this pick.
There are many things at the end of the year that you look back, and you had such a marvelous year, Mike, but it didn't end well. Have you put your fingers on a few of the things that maybe, only time you went back and looked at what happened down the stretch, especially in the playoff game, that you're going to jump on these next 2 days to fix?
Well, I'm excited about our football team that's coming back. We got a great group of men here. But last season, our injuries did accumulate throughout the course of the season, and certainly had its toll at the end of the season. And we were beaten by two pretty good football teams. But it's time to regroup, and we're looking forward to next season. Nick Barnett's going to be a part of that, and we're excited about that.
Very quickly, Brett Favre. Threat, he didn't say, question, geez, is this his last year? Now has he come back and says he wants to play 7 more? Where do we stand with Brett?
Well, Brett Favre loves to play football, and I envision him to be back. He's excited. I visited with him about 6 weeks ago, and he talked about the upcoming season with enthusiasm. And as long as he keeps playing at the level he plays, I think Brett will continue to play. He's having too much fun.
His level is as good as we've ever seen in the league. You were 12-4 last year. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, Mike Sherman with Green Bay. The Raiders are now on the clock with the last 2 picks of the first round. They won a
2003 NFL draft. The Oakland Raiders select Asmoga Namdi, cornerback, California.
It was a pronouncer that the commissioner was going over, right?
A big corner for those big receivers.
Namdi Asamoah.
Brayton, defensive end, Colorado.
So you get the corner and the defensive end, Chris, and that was that defense or wide receiver. They get a corner/safety in Namdi Asamoah. They get a defensive end with a great motor in Tyler Brayton.
Don't tell me he's going to make big plays on prime time. I'm going to have to say his name over and over and over.
You heard Jeff Fisher talk about taking a big corner in Wolfhook because you're seeing these big receivers, the Rodgers, the Andre Johnsons, and we know that Tyrone Calico, big receiver, is going to get drafted. So there is a benefit to taking a big corner.
He played corner and safety. I think when you look at a kid 6'2 1/4", 210 pounds, with the ability to be a press corner as well as a safety, and a guy that is very smart, very well-spoken young man. He'll come in, he'll work hard, and he gives you that dual versatility. Tyler Brayton has a motor. This kid works as hard as anybody. He played defensive tackle this year, has to move outside the defensive end, needs technique work, high out of his stance, comes out high, can get handled by those skilled offensive tackles. He's a hard worker, dedicated kid with the motor, but he needs some work, needs to be coached up.
Namdi Asamoah.
Asamoah.
Sounds French. Hey, I know it's not. Tyler Brayton.
Don't call me that.
Now, Brayton is a guy with a motor, right, Mel, that he's
Oh, yeah.
I heard his name rising up the last few days.
Boomer, he laid tackle this year. He's not going to play that position in the NFL more than likely. He'll move outside the defensive end. He's a guy with tremendous wingspan, great height. I mean, this guy's going to be a factor in terms of batting down passes. What he needs to do is become a little more technically sound, utilize leverage a little better, not be so high out of his stance, and allow those offensive tackles to get the best of him. The Senior Bowl, he was making tackles on the kick coverage unit, hustling downfield to be the first guy down there, 20, 24-yard line to make the play. So you get a kid who wants to be an excellent player, but definitely needs.
Iowa, Eric Steinbach.
Susie, we
The Detroit Lions have selected linebacker from University of Georgia, Boss Bailey. Chicago's on the clock.
Susie, Boss Bailey, we just mentioned, he was the one that dropped the most. He was projected to go maybe to St. Louis at 12. They opted instead for Jimmy Kennedy, defensive tackle out of Penn State. Boss Bailey has tremendous speed. I don't know many linebackers coming out of the college ranks ran a 4.38 legitimately at a 47-inch vertical jump. That's unheard of at the linebacker position. That's why a lot of teams were looking at Bailey as a safety. Some even thought about working him out as a cornerback. He's that skilled. Problem with Bailey, why is he still here if he's so good? A knee injury, ACL to both knees, as well as the fact he just didn't tackle that well. He wasn't a consistent tackler, reliable tackler, didn't always gather himself in the open field in space to make the play. So even though he had all those tackles, remember in college, let's say they had the tackles, but you know, sometimes when you go back and look at it, it wasn't the 10 or 12 they're credit for, maybe it was 6 or 7. So I think in Boss Bailey's case, he has to define a position, he needs to be coached up and become a better tackler, be it at linebacker or safety. We see him be able to block extra points, block field goals because of that leaping ability, but he's going to have to make his mark as a linebacker with his speed and I think maybe settle in maybe his second or third year in the NFL to that spot.
NFL personnel would like to believe that the college game is mirroring the pro game. The NFL right now, more teams playing the 3-4. You need more quality linebackers. Hard pressed to find those guys coming out of the college game now.
So it really is. I talked to some coaches in the NFL. They said he can develop. He can improve as a tackler.
A speedy guy, Boss Bailey. When we come back, Chris Berman with Paul Tagliabue, the commission of the NFL. Stay with us.
Baseball tonight, all season long on ESPN and ESPN2.
Oh yeah, summertime, flip-flop, small top, party bumping non-stop. So much ice in my cooler, you think I was a jeweler. Bling, catching rays, making plays. Someone got more zap than a microwave. Big blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes too. All the honeys checking who? The king of Malibu.
The silver bizzle. I had lotion on my hands. I burn easily.
Can I write a check?
Yo.
Yow.
Yo.
Yow.
Yo.
Yo.
Can I write a check?
Yo.
Yow.
Yo.
Yow. Yow.
Yo.
Yow.
Yo.
Can I write a check?
Yo. Next time, use the Visa check card instead of checks. It'll get you in, out, and on with life.
Yo.
Gee. Yo, gee.
Yo.
Impeccable road manners. Well-dressed interior. Looks best in red. Introducing the all-new Mazda 6.
It comes to athlete's foot. This is the latest. This isn't. Lotrimin Ultra, the latest prescription strength medicine available without a prescription. The latest cure, so ultra powerful. One use a day is all you need. Nothing's proven stronger or faster. Lotrimin Ultra.
When your first name is Armor, you don't just clean and shine. You protect with just a wipe. Armor All Protectant Wipes.
Well, welcome back to New York. We are now into the second round, which means the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, gets to take a break and come down from the podium. He's the one with the clean desk over here. We do the fastest 3 minutes in television at halftime of our ESPN Sunday night games, Commissioner. That was the fastest 4 minutes in about 4 picks. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Not in my experience.
Well, you had to be quick on your feet and with your hands. Playoffs. There has been some talk of expanding from 12 to 14 teams, and I guess that's not a solved or resolved issue, right? There's an owners meeting coming up. Where does that stand, expanding the playoffs?
Well, we're looking at the whole idea very carefully, doing a lot of analysis. I think most clubs feel there's some serious competitive issues because as part of this concept, you'd have to have one team with a bye, but the second seed in each conference would not have a bye. It would be the first time in the history of the league we haven't had those two teams with byes, so you have a differential path to the championship game. That's one of the issues. There are many issues. We're going to have a full report in May and make some decisions.
I was surprised that changing the overtime perhaps to possession each team because of so many overtimes this year kind of went quieter than I thought it would at the owners' meeting. Were you? Is that not that close in changing?
Well, a majority were in favor of changing, but we need more than that. It was the first time it was really discussed in depth in recent years. And let's face it, the current overtime system has got a lot of drama to it. Mm-hmm. It gives coaches an incentive to take risks, go for the win, because if you get the score, it's over. There was concern that might be eliminated if there was a two-possession rule. So we'll be back at it next year.
Well, and one thing that is true is that it's nice you hate to see a game end on an incomplete pass. Let's say you end with something good that happened, whether it be offense or defense. Los Angeles, it's sitting out there. You got your 32 teams. It's nice, neat, etc. But I know, Commissioner, that the Rose Bowl has been refurbished finally. It's a beautiful venue anyway. Does that open up a door one way or the other, perhaps? How does that change the way the league looks at it?
Well, the Rose Bowl has been moving on a path as people in Pasadena, the city council, to deal with the Rose Bowl game itself, and UCLA plays there, of course. So they really need to take some more steps on their own. Certainly, we know we have a lot of NFL fans in the LA area. We want to get a team back there, but whether we can do it in the short term, whether we can do it at the Rose Bowl, there's still a lot of ifs, ands, or buts on those kinds of questions. Eventually, we'll be back there, hopefully in the right way, with an exciting team.
I'm sure in a perfect world, you don't want to move anybody there. What other things excite you about what the league is doing that maybe the fans don't know, Paul?
Well, some of the most exciting things, I think, are in the area of youth football. We've got our youth football fund with the Players Association. We just appointed a former player, Patriots player, Cedric Jones, to head it up. That's exciting. Player development, working with our own players so they can look beyond football and have a career outside of sports. We brought in Hall of Famer Mike Haynes to work with us on that. Those are some of the things that occupy us now during the offseason.
Your first draft, 1990, as commissioner, Emmitt Smith, drafted by the Cowboys, now the all-time leading rusher. Junior Seau, drafted by the San Diego Chargers, a civic treasure. Emmitt Smith is in Arizona. Junior Seau is in Miami. I know it's partly the system, but this can't be great. It can't be great.
Well, I think we have the best system when it comes to that because we do have the franchise player concept, and you saw players like Elway and Marino and others finish with the team where they started. In Emmitt's case and Junior Seau's case, I guess it's a little bit like Johnny Unitas and Joe Namath and Franco Harris finishing with another team before we had a salary cap and free agency. So it's one of the things you don't like to see, but when a great athlete wants to keep competing, it's hard to say no.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You had Namath as a Ram, Unitas with the black high tops as a Charger. Didn't look right. We'll see how these guys enjoyed seeing you up there. You worked a little overtime a little bit.
Well, it's getting to be that way every year.
Thank you, Paul.
Good to see you.
Nice
Thanks.
to see you.
Okay.
Commissioner Tagliabue, as we go into the second round, we'll catch up on all the picks with Detroit, Chicago, Houston. We'll get you set.
Ever wonder how the world's most sophisticated credit card systems can process millions of transactions all around the world, all at the same moment in time? They rely on the world's most capable networking company, AT&T.
Yo, Fuzzball!
When athletes sweat, they lose more than just water. Gatorade puts back sodium and potassium, proven to replenish and rehydrate athletes better than water. Gatorade. Is it in you?
Hey, where the heck is everybody? I got a whole box of...
So they now have chosen 3 players, 35 picks through the draft so far. 6 have been cornerbacks. Tells you how important it is to cover some of these big wide receivers. They had, the Chicago Bears, 2 picks in that first round, and of course they took Rex Grossman. Why did they take Rex Grossman? They have Cordell Stewart.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Hey,
Cordell Stewart went ahead and went on up to Chicago from Pittsburgh after losing his job to Tommy Maddox. And tell you what, looks a little funny in that Chicago Bears uniform, but he is a playmaker, and that's really what they're looking for up in Chicago, Merrill.
But EA's got it right. See how they have him moving around? Dimensions. Everybody talks about dimensions. Cordell Stewart brings dimensions to the Chicago Bear offense. The second he signed, the Chicago Bear offense got better. Immediately, Mr. Jaworski.
You must have missed the second animation where he stood nicely in the pocket and delivered the football.
But this is the key to Cordell Stewart. What he does is he makes defenses play longer than they want to. The mobile quarterback, you gotta love it. It puts a tremendous burden on the defense. Look what you have. It's man coverage with a single deep safety. There's no spy. The only defenders accounting for Cordell are the pass rushers. Look from the end zone. You'll see that Cordell is presented with 2 defined options.
Moving up, maybe bottom 1, Mel, and Morton Denny, corner from Illinois, goes to Houston.
I'll tell you what, Chris, when you look at him as a sophomore, when he played outstanding football, 4 interceptions, 16 pass breakups. The next year, 70 tackles, 6 interceptions, 30 pass breakups. Unfortunately, this past season, he didn't get a lot of help. Illinois, their front 7 didn't get after the quarterback. His production dropped dramatically at just 1 pick and only 14 pass breakups. That's less than half of what he had the previous year. But I'll tell you, when I talked to Ron Turner early in this kid's college career, he raved about where he would be as a senior. He didn't take it to that level, mainly because if you don't have the front 7 doing their job, makes life tough for a guy out on that island playing the cornerback spot. So Eugene Wilson is a guy, a lot of people were looking back first or even into the early second or late first. This is about where he was projected.
A sheet printed out, but Eugene Wilson, New England Patriots, and they have been quite busy. We'll go to that a little bit later. But that's a good, again, they wanted to get younger on defense, and they continue to do that. Now, New Orleans, Stinchcomb, and as Morton, obviously we pointed out earlier, they lost Kyle Turley, so here's a tackle.
Yeah, here's a left tackle who can pass protect. I thought Houston, they look at him, they traded away to New England, so now all of a sudden here's Stinchcomb available for the Saints, a guy that did an excellent job against the finesse athletic defensive ends. And here's a guy that I think when you look at the power guys, gave him trouble. He's got a narrow frame for a 6'5", 305-pounder. He's up from 285 this past season. Needs to get a little stronger in terms of the way he performs. His weight room strength is excellent. The way he applies it on the field, questionable with that lower body not being as strong as like a lot of teams in the NFL were looking for.
We call that functional strength.
Well, this is the second pick of the Jerry Jones, Bill Parcells.
Selected from Wisconsin, offensive center, Al Johnson. Jacksonville's on the clock.
A center. Although you can play center, you're surprised, Denny? A center for Bill Parcells.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised this early. I mean, I think he's a good player. Mel definitely had him ranked as highly. But, I think Bill has just got to get to what he wants to be, a little impact player. I mean, who's the highest guy on the board on defense? Who's the guy on the board on defense who I can help make our defense better? I mean, Bill's thinking defense to rebuild his team.
Well, you asked that question before the break, Chris, about what do we think of Dallas. Well, I think the important issue is what does Bill Parcells think of the Cowboys? What does Jerry Jones think of it? And are they in agreement? Because the way this draft is going down, it looks like Jerry Jones and that group think they're just a player or two away from being a playoff contender. I think Parcells is more prone to multiply his picks. They didn't trade out of that first spot there. This is a team that still hasn't addressed running back. The quarterback is still an issue. The defense is the type of defense, Coach Green, as you mentioned, that Bill Parcells wants. I mean, I think this thing still has to settle down. I don't think this team is just one player away from being a playoff.
But we're not saying Al Johnson's not good. He's a good player.
They need a center.
Look at that depth chart. You got Tyson Wall, you got Matt Lair. They're hurting at that position. That's the anchor up front. If you're going to have Hutchinson and you're going to go after a veteran quarterback, all starts up front. This kid started a lot of games during his career at Wisconsin. 10 straight 100,000-yard rushers in Wisconsin. That's a Big Ten record. So this kid was a veteran for an offensive line at Wisconsin. And granted, some of those guys have struggled in the NFL more, but a guy that I think can come in to an offensive line that needed help at that anchor position.
This is Rasheed Mathis, and you saw Division I AA Defensive Player of the Year out of Bethune-Cookman. That's gone. He's gone at corner to Jacksonville.
I project him the corner, but like you look at a guy who's a free safety at Bethune-Cookman, has cornerback skills, had a lot of interceptions as a free safety. Does he tackle well enough, though? That was the question. At corner, can he get the experience? Can he ease his way into the mix with that versatility? Can he define a position and adjust to this level of competition? What helped this kid was the Senior Bowl practices, did a good job down in Mobile. That gave teams hope that he could have the ability to transition in to the NFL as a rookie, second-year guy as either a free safety or a corner.
And Mathis, a guy that personnel people and coaches said has great ball skills. You're right. They don't see him as a safety because he's not a great tackler. But, hey, Bethune-Cookman down in Daytona Beach, he didn't have to travel very far here.
Well, again, one of these you don't go pay him just to rent a van for a day. But how about this? Good ball skills, 14 interceptions last year, 31 interceptions for his career. I don't care who you're playing against. You got to catch the ball and not drop it, right? And you got to be around the ball when it's thrown. So that's the Division I AA record holder. So Jacksonville just got that, a local kid. Minnesota
got in early.
Oh my God, Minnesota with 9 minutes and 40 seconds to spare on the 10-minute second-round pick, and the pick is in already. So you know what? At least their lessons have been learned.
They've learned the lesson, and that's the key thing. You know, I think this is they've got to get a guy they want
With
here.
pick number 40, Minnesota has selected from Maryland linebacker E.J. Henderson.
Interesting.
Now, he's a guy that we thought might be first round, certainly in the previous months.
But that was Philadelphia. And Philadelphia moved up to get Jerome McDougal. And when Philadelphia's out of the first round, how many teams are looking for a middle linebacker, especially a middle linebacker like E.J. coming off April back surgery, slow starting this past season, did come on strong late. There he's tackling Greg Jones, a highly rated running back who will be coming off a knee injury this season for the Seminoles. And you look at what he did against Tennessee in the Peach Bowl. Here we go. Maryland dominated Tennessee. He was the key focal point again, key ingredient on that defense. He was back to his junior form when he had 175 tackles. So I think when you look at 150 tackles, 175 tackles over the last 2 years, the way he performed late in the season, back at full strength, I think gave teams the feeling that, hey, maybe that back injury is a thing of the past.
Yeah, but I heard some teams say they're not so certain about him because of the back injury. But remember, George O'Leary is now the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. He and Ralph Friedgen are the closest of friends. Ralph Friedgen is the head coach at Maryland, and there's no question that Ralph Friedgen had to tell him, go with this guy, don't worry about his back, he's going to be a productive pro.
Remember that game on ESPN Thursday night a few years ago when Joe Burns fumbled in overtime? Remember who the key player for Maryland was that game against George O'Leary's rambling record, Georgia Tech? It was E.J. Henderson.
Well, resume includes the Butkus Award, the Bednarik Award, which are two pretty impressive awards.
Well, it is. He's got the big reputation. He's got the name and the reputation. A lot of people early, and let's put it like this, if you draft after the junior year, he goes very, very high. And so, again, it's one of these guys where maybe it's overanalyzed. He's big and strong. He can blitz off the corner like Brian Cox of the old days. Mm-hmm. He can play middle backer. He can take on a guard. He can take on a lead backer. What else do you want a middle linebacker to do?
Well, that's what they want him to do in Minnesota. We have Houston and Seattle next. But for the word on what Dallas is doing, we head to Big D now and our Ed Werder. Ed?
Well, Boomer, the Cowboys really liked Terrence Newman. They had him very high on their board. I know that around the league he was the #1 player on at least 10 boards. Jerry Jones, describing him earlier, says he has a Deion-like initial burst. And I was just talking to Roy Williams, the Cowboys rookie safety, their #1 pick from last year. He said this pick, having a cover corner, a guy they can trust to man up, will allow Darren Woodson and Roy Williams a lot of opportunities to play closer to the line of scrimmage, more blitz opportunities, better chance to offer better run support. And then I think what you've seen Bill Parcells do in the second round with Al Johnson, a little bit of a surprise because last year the Cowboys had Andre Gerard, a second-round pick who started a lot of games there. And they also had Tyson Walter, a 6th-round pick who started at the end of the season there. And then But what this does, they finished last year. They had 10 different offensive line combinations, Chris. And one coach told me it's perhaps the worst offensive line situation in the history of pro football that Dallas faced a year ago.
Well, that would be a pretty big statement, Ed. But you haven't heard any chairs or any loud voices, sounds emanating from the draft room, have you, over there?
No, and we've been carefully monitoring our draft room cam to make sure that Bill Parcells keeps his hands off Jerry Jones's windpipe. And now we're not even through 2 rounds yet, but so far it's been a success.
Well, Bill claims that he's Sergeant Schultz in all this when you go and look at this draft, that he knows nothing. But Bill, we know better than that. Ed, thanks. We'll get back to you a little bit better.
Okay, Boomer.
But we're General Borcarter, right? That's right. Or Jerry's General Borcarter. We'll be back. Washington and Carolina, then San Diego here in the second round. And joining us now by video, the Coors Light video conference in Houston, gave you to Houston. Ken Hamlin, a very intriguing player from Seattle, a big hitting safety. So they've gone corner safety to try to move up, push the envelope with Ray Rhodes, the defensive coordinator now. And then Pisa Tinoe Samoa from
good job
Hawaii. Linebacker goes to St. Louis, and then the Washington Redskins, right? Here's Gene Washington making the pick for Washington.
With pick number 44, Washington has selected from the University of Florida wide receiver Taylor Jacobs.
Whoa. Well, now there's a guy that, wait a minute, let me get this up. First of all, first time we've heard from the Redskins. They're one of 4 teams that didn't have a first-round pick. Washington, from Florida, Coach Steve Spurrier.
What's interesting about this pick, besides that, Chris, is that the Redskins had receivers a priority going into this offseason. And then, before they signed Lavernius Coles to that offer sheet, the wide receiver from the Jets, they actually evaluated the receivers, and Taylor Jacobs is one of the guys they would have considered taking with their first-round pick, the 13th pick, that the Jets got in that deal. So here they do get him on the second round, and it is good value.
I'll tell you, people say, well, he's not a number 1, but they don't need that. They hope Lavernius Coles is that player. They have Rod Gardner. He can be a 3 with Washington, and that's where he's going to be tremendously productive. The Senior Bowl, he was one of the top 2 or 3 players there. You see his polish, the route running skills. He knows when to body catch. He knows when to extend those hands to catch the football. This kid, the only thing is he gets nicked some. He was at the Senior Bowl, nicked, didn't play in the game, so people question his toughness there. But when you look at the hands and the concentration and the skill level of this kid, I said all along, he can come in as a rookie and contribute. At Washington, he's not going to be expected to be the 1 or the 2. All he has to do is be the 3 behind Coles and Gardner, and Steve Spurrier will be ecstatic.
Well, I think it will be. I think what people are concerned about, though, is will this guy be exactly what you want him to be? I don't think there's any doubt from Steve Spurrier. He knows the guy well. He knows him better than anybody else. He wanted the guy. He got the guy. Particularly, this is their first pick of the day. And so it's one they got to really believe in.
Well, they only have, what, a 2, a 3, a 7, right? There are only 3 or 4 picks, right, for the Redskins?
Well, they had Lavernius Coles, now Taylor Jacobs. They got Trung candidate Chad Morton and Matt Bowen. They have a 3 coming up. They have a 7. Maybe the 7th-round pick's a punter. 3rd-round pick. They could go safety. So I think this is a team that if you factor in the players they picked up, Morton, I know they overpaid in some cases to get those guys, but you factor those guys in, you got to be happy with what you got.
Well, Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, paid $5 million a year to get Steve Spurrier, who's supposed to be a great offensive coach. Only they didn't have a lot of those offensive players. Hey, they've upgraded their offense tremendously, and with the guys they did acquire this offseason, the Coles and the Randy Thomas, they are young guys in the prime of their career.
Texas A&M wide receiver Bethel Johnson.
Well, we will finish with Washington in a minute, but as Gene Washington told us, this is Carolina's spot. New England, who has become deal them left, deal them right, put them in, take them out. The New England Patriots got on the clock here where Carolina was, moving up 5 spots as they did earlier in this round. It cost them a 4, and they took a wide receiver. So now a big wide, right? A big,
a little bigger than what they have, though, right?
And Detroit Brown is great, 100-catch guy, but Deion Branch is speedster. They need something else. They brought in a lot of guys last year.
He's not Kelly Washington.
Donald Hayes, that didn't pan out.
He's not Kelly Washington at 6'2.5", 220 pounds. He's at 5'11", 197, but it's bigger than what they have. And I think you'll get speed. One of the fastest players in the draft is Bethel Johnson. He's a guy that can really do a job after the catch. You see him there, turned upfield, getting it into the end zone. He also has some kickoff return experience at Texas A&M, so he did it on special teams, did a good job this past season. An offense where you look at The freshman quarterback had to move in and do some things late in the year. Reggie McNeil, they never had that kind of passing game to allow this kid to really accentuate his skills. I think when you look at the speed factor, that's why he's a second-round pick. Kelly Washington, the concern still is the neck. That's why some other receivers have slid ahead of him in this draft process.
Brent Branch was picked in the second round last year. So just let me, and don't try to follow all of this, but New England basically began this draft with 13 draft picks, and you can't really afford to pay all those, all right? The end total is they're down to 10 draft picks total in this draft. They gave up a 1, 2 3s, a 4, and a 6. They picked up a 2 and a 4. They wiggled around up a couple times in a 2, and they wiggled in the 1, but they picked up a 1 and a 2 next year. A first-round pick and a second-round pick next year, and you've seen what they've drafted thus far. I don't expect you to take notes on it, but by the way, they're not done doing this. Just a guess. When we return, San Diego on the clock, and we'll talk with Steve Spurrier in a moment. There's no way you can follow all of it, but why not get it in?
On the 10th anniversary of his passing, ESPN Classic dedicates a special night to Jim Valvano. From his attitude on the court to his motivation off.
Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
Jimmy V inspired a nation. Plus your classic big ticket to see Jimmy V's Wolfpack dunk Houston's Phi Slamma Jamma. A classic tribute to Jim Valvano. Starts at 8 Eastern Monday, only on ESPN Classic. Get ESPN Classic. Call your cable or satellite provider now.
Third and long once again for the Texans. Carr brings the offense to the line. The Cowboys' front four has been all over the rookie.
What does your team need? The NFL Draft. Boomer, Mel Kiper Jr. and the crew bring you 17 hours, 32 teams, all 262 picks, because every round counts. The 2003 NFL Draft presented by Coors Light. Coverage continues tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
You know, ideas and inventions come from people in all walks of life, and most of the century's top inventions came from individuals, not companies. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? Are you interested in trying to submit your idea to companies for a good faith review and in trying to patent it as well? If so, Invention Submission Corporation has information to help you get started. ISC is a...
We think we got a team that certainly should be competitive.
What did you learn, Steve, as we wrap it up here? What did you going into year 2 as an NFL head coach versus this time last year? What do you know now that you didn't know then?
Well, Boomer, that's hard to say. Obviously, maybe made some mistakes bringing some of my old players in because at the end of the season, we were playing with the players who were with the Redskins. Rod Gardner, Darnarian McCants were two of our receivers, Darius Thompson, and then, of course, Patrick Ramsey was our quarterback. So we just gave a lot of guys a chance, and it worked out that the players that were playing at the end of the year were not some of the guys that I brought in. But anyway, that's the way it happened, and we're excited about the players we got now, and we think we should be very competitive.
Well, you got the first game of the year against the Jets with half their players in the opening game on Thursday night. You'll be off first. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Boomer.
All right, Coach Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach, right? So it was overcast at a FedEx Field deal today. Couldn't get in a quick 9. They have a 2, a 3, and 2 7s, and that's it. Unless they make some
They
deals.
have no 7s now.
Well, that's right. They have
Jermaine Haley, they have just the 3rd, and that's it right now.
My cousin Vinny going to get on the case here, Serrato?
Move down.
Let's go to Andrea Kramer down the street here at the magazine. Andrea?
Thanks a lot, Chris. Along with Redskins right tackle John Jensen, who has played every single game for the Redskins all 4 of your seasons. So you've seen a lot with this team, but this year, 13 new players before the draft, 7 potential starters. That doesn't even include Chad Morton and kicker John Hall. But chemistry issues come up. How do you think everybody's going to fit in to this new team?
Well, change is something that we've become accustomed to with the Redskins, and I think that this year we got a lot of young guys. We got a lot of guys earlier in their contracts. I think we're going to be able to start something here that's going to carry on for a couple of years, and I really believe that we're going to have the time between now and when we open up against the Jets to create some chemistry, to create some things, and we have some key players back. Chris and I are back on the line with Larry, our center. Patrick is back, and he's going to have a lot of weapons to use. So we're really excited about this season coming up.
How are these new offensive players, whether it's a Lavernius Coles or, as we see here, Tyler Jacobs, going to fit in? in terms of how complicated Steve Spurrier's system is?
Well, I think it's going to be great having Jacobs coming in because he's going to be familiar with the system. So he's going to be able to have an advantage over some of the other rookies on other teams because he's going to know what's expected of him. He's going to have a relationship with the coaches and the coaching staff. And, I think a lot of the other guys, in terms of Lavernius and Chad Morton and some of the other guys, they're going to be able to come through and learn because they're pros. They've done this before. They've run their routes. They know what to do. It's just going to be called something different for our program. So they're going to be successful at it.
In addition to one of the Jets that was new to the Redskins is going to be lined up right next to you all season, Randy Thomas, the guard. What will your interior line look like? Because it's pretty much remade, led by Randy Thomas.
Yeah, and Dave Fiore there on the left side. And, Chris and I have talked. We're extremely excited about having a couple of guys in there that are really going to be solid guys for us, guys that we know are going to be with us for a couple of years. And we're so excited to have both those guys because they're high caliber players. They're tough guys. They're guys that get excited about playing football.
But you want chemistry on an offensive line, and now you got all these new players.
Well, we've had new players for the last 4 years, so there's nothing different there. And now we have, they gave Randy some money and a long contract, and Dave's going to be here for a couple of years. Chris is going to be here for a while. I just signed a new deal, so we've got the beginnings of a line that can stay together for a long time, and I'm really excited about that.
And before you know it, Jets game will be here, payback time. Thanks very much, John. The NFL Draft will continue from New York and points beyond right after this. Please stay with us.
Off the work I go, might punch a clock, but it won't stop my flow. I keep it moving from AM to PM. Call my peoples, tell them I'll see them. At the party, it's gonna be live. We'll work it out on our other 9 to 5.
I'm Carson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winner, top draft pick.
How you like it down there, Rook? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. I want military-style push-ups. 4 Mississippi.
Welcome to the big time, Rook.
5 Mississippi.
Madden, NFL 2004, EA Sports. It's in the game. Product not yet rated.
Listen up, lug nuts. It's pop quiz time. What happens to an engine with too much friction? I'll tell you, it loses power. So you want to reduce friction, right, Tinkerbell? This is new Quaker State. Engineered to deliver a 10% lower coefficient of friction. In other words, it's even better than before, because too much friction, touchy little gearhead, ain't he? Nice haircut. New Quaker State, the power to reduce friction. What more do you need to know?
We're really close, and we need to talk constantly, even when we're not together, so we need a calling plan that lets us talk as much as we want, whenever we want, at no extra charge.
With Singular's Family Talk plan, call each other for free with unlimited mobile-to-mobile calling. Get 5,000 night and weekend minutes to share, up to 3 additional lines, and up to 4 free phones.
We call it the Jordy and Julie sister-to-sister plan.
Come into Singular now to find the plan that fits you best.
Introducing ESPN.com Fantasy Football League Manager. Now run your league your way. ESPN.com Fantasy Football League Manager. Visit ESPN.com, search fantasy. Your league is counting on you. Count on us.
The 2003 NFL Draft continues almost halfway through the second round. Top stories of the day so far. 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round, beginning with Carson Palmer, a Bengal, where John Kitna is the starter. Byron Leftwich goes to Jacksonville, where he will back up Mark Brunell. Kyle Bowler could possibly be the starter in Baltimore. Rex Grossman will sit behind Cordell Stewart in Chicago. Now, Penn State doesn't have the greatest history of NFL running backs. Larry Johnson will hope to change all that when a 4 Nittany Lions taken in the first round, but not the first back. That honor goes to Willis McGahee, working hard to rehabilitate that knee. But when will he see action in Buffalo? So the Hurricanes, one of 4 first-round picks. Penn State and Miami account for 8 of the first 32 picks. The draft continues. Buffalo on the clock.
People do some strange things to cars, but Carfax can give you the real history of any used car, and that could save you thousands. Go to Carfax.com or your dealer for a Carfax report. Don't buy a used car without Carfax.
Introducing the new Nissan Murano for your adventures in on-roading.
Why do I rent from Enterprise? Because having the right car or truck makes all the difference. Sweetheart, your honey-do list just got a little bit longer. Sorry.
Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
Out here, the grass never stops growing, and you gotta take care of that. So, boys! Fresh cut grass smells like victory.
Is there a bigger crapshoot in the NFL draft? Lest we forget, we actually wasted time debating who was a better draft pick, Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. Joe Montana was a 3rd rounder. The only sure thing about the NFL draft is that Jet fans will hate their pick.
Love him, hate him, you gotta watch him. Rome is Burning. Premieres Tuesday, May 6th at 7 Eastern. Jim Rome is back on ESPN.
Welcome back to New York. The Buffalo Bills have just selected in the 2nd round. We'll have that in a moment. But here is what Tom Donahoe has done for Greg Williams and their defense of a team that was 8-8 and played shootout after shootout. The Keg, Sam Adams, and Keith. Well, let's go back to that for a minute. You saw Keith McKenzie, who was a pretty good pass rusher before he hurt his knee, right, with Green Bay. I assume Takeo Spikes was on the first page, right? And Jeff Posey, linebacker of Houston, not a lot of people saw. Spikes, of course, a very good player from Cincinnati. Some DBs in Sydney from the Titans and Isaiah Reese in the Broncos. They did. This will be an adventure. Ryan Lindell, the kicker from the Seahawks. And, oh, by the way, the head coach of the Bengals last year, Dick LeBeau, added to the defensive staff. And now they've picked, they went Willis McGahee in the 1st round. Say, you know what, we can use a guy who some had late 1st round, Chris Kelsey, the defensive end Nebraska, Mel.
No question, Chris. He could have been a late 1st rounder, and I don't think anybody in the country could have argued. Look at Kelsey late in the year. He had that hamstring. He missed 4 games. We were down there with College Game Day on ESPN Radio for the Texas-Nebraska game. He had to sit out that contest, and, of course, then he got ready for the Senior Bowl, and he participated in the practices and did a pretty good job. He's about 6'4.5", 273 pounds. He's got the motor. He's in the Grant Wistrom mold. Wistrom was a top 10 pick. Now he's a mid-second. So I think when you look at that, you say, okay, nice pick for the Bills. He goes into that mix at defensive end with Schobel and with Denny, a position they needed some help. They did pass on the tight end, so maybe they can come back in round 3. Look at adding a tight end.
Well, there've only been 2 tight ends gone thus far, right? Midway through the 2nd round. So you have about 4 or 5 about the same.
You know, we talk about the additions that the Bills made, and Takeo Spikes, to me, the Cincinnati Bengals linebacker who now is in Buffalo, to me, he might have been the best free agent pickup of this offseason. There's a lot of them, but I thought he might have been as good as any because he's not only going to make their team better, he's going to make London Fletcher better in the middle as well.
Man, Posey's an underrated guy. Look, we're not trying to sing the praise of everything that the Bills did, but they went after it in the offseason, which allowed them to gamble a little bit with McGahee. I'm still kind of not shocked, but it's a very interesting cab ride that the Bills of all people took Willis McGahee.
Well, I think that they're confident. What you've got is a head coach and a general manager, in sync. The guys are really working together. That becomes important because they did so much to help themselves defensively in unrestricted free agency. Remember, you build a team, unrestricted free agency, and the draft. You know what I mean? Those are two good ways, a couple other ways too, but they help themselves, and so now they can say, hey, Chris Kelsey can run, he can make plays, he's got a great motor.
Well, motor, Buffalo, again, that's a division in which everybody was 500 as the Bills were or better last year. Another division that's as tough as they come, the AFC West, and on the Coors Light video conference now with us is the new general manager of the San Diego Chargers, A.J. Smith. And I know, A.J., an emotional and an exciting day for you guys. You made a trade right out of the gates, and you picked Sammy Davis. You have to tell me if there was a smile or two in that room on that one.
Oh, there sure was. No question about that. And you know that we had John Butler's card up there, which we did before the draft, to symbolize having his spirit in the room, and it was well received by everyone.
Well, we had a chance to show that to our viewers. How has it been doing business here in San Diego? You and Marty and John had worked so close together and really are building up very quickly. Business these last 10 days. I guess maybe one of the best things was that you had something as important as the draft to do. Am I right?
You're right. It's been a tough deal. You and I talked about it. It's been real difficult for us, the Charger family here. But John had a theme, business as usual. He said that when he was ill. He said it all the way through the process and even right up to the end before he passed away. So it's a theme that we have in our minds. And the draft obviously is business as usual, but he's in our thoughts.
Well, let's talk about the Chargers, the ball club. You picked two defensive backs here. You know, no Junior Seau, no Rodney Harrison, but in comes David Boston and a nice young quarterback and a great young running back. Where do the Chargers have to really move this weekend in the draft to make you guys a division contender?
Well, I think we said before, Boomer, that we're going to have a defensive emphasis. We're not happy with the defense. We're looking to shore that up. And we took a couple of defensive backs, right out of the gate, and we're going to continue that mindset. No offense if there's a heck of a football player up there, but we need to address the defense, and we're underway doing that.
We heard Mort say that Takeo Spikes might have been one of the biggest defensive pickups in the offseason. How about David Boston at wide receiver? I know there was some question about him in Arizona, but obviously he passed all the questions for you guys. Is there any in your mind? And I would think the sky's the limit for this guy.
Absolutely. We think he's one of the top players in the National Football League, and all of the questions were addressed by us. We had David in, and we're very happy with the results of everything, and we got a heck of a football player.
Well, you've been in this game a long time. Congratulations on your new post. I know it's an emotional time, but we appreciate you being so forthcoming with us, and onward and upward for the Chargers. Thank you, A.J.
Thanks, Boomer, and I'll see you on May 8th.
Yes, we will, and we should elaborate on that because there are many former players
coming back. So we were just looking to add some depth, and then if
teams flag it, some teams take you off the board, and all of a sudden, instead of a first-round pick, you go in round 2, or even early in round 3, as the case with Washington. First pick in round 3 to Cincinnati.
And we're going through some of these guys who have the red flags because of the injuries. This guy here, Kelly Washington, Musa Smith, the running back from Georgia, apparently has something called stenosis, which is the narrowing of that cervical spine.
They're going to wind it down and give the Knicks as few seconds as possible. Peyton tied up. 4 on the shot clock. Kukoc looks up. Fall away from Kukoc is up. Won't go. Harris the rebound. Timeout Nets. Kenyon Martin defended him beautifully. And once again, the Bucks don't get a quality shot. Shoot. New Jersey still has a 20-second timeout remaining, so if they have trouble getting in, they can call time. Both teams in a penalty. Jason Kidd fakes. Kidd at the buzzer. Won't go. But he got fouled before. Byron Scott felt he traveled, but it looked like there was contact. Again, there's a foul to give, so the Bucks will take the ball out of bounds with 7.3 remaining.
See, I don't like that decision. I think they should have went for the quick 2. They got a bad 3. Kukoc gets the rebound. Jumps up's got nowhere to go.
He's lucky he didn't get a traveling there. It looked like he got fouled before. Now Cassell is fouled by Harris. It's really hard to tell on that angle, but it appeared that he was fouled before he came back down to the floor, which would have been the travel. So Sam Cassell will go to the line for the first time in this game. Let's see another angle on that play. Yeah, it appears he got fouled before. I think that's the right call. Blaine Reichelt was right there. Cassell will now shoot two. And that will most likely do it. Although we've seen a lot of strange things in this game.
Come down and get a quick two or a quick three and then foul again.
The key for New Jersey is that they still have a 20-second timeout. Two clutch free throws, but they're going to use it now with 6.6 remaining. Nets now out of timeouts and down by 5. And tie this series at 2 games apiece.
That bike better be done. That's all I got to say.
This program
is incredible. I will tell you, I was a little bit concerned. I started to get concerned. I was just telling your dad after you came back from that show and you had the flat tires and all.
Yeah.
So
You're getting worried.
Yeah, I was a little worried.
To build a bike in 3 weeks is just an astronomical feat, and there's really a lot of pressure that I'm not used to. You know, they were looking for a certain look. Also, the money involved added to the pressure.
I walked in here expecting to not see the bike that I saw. There's no question about it.
Wow.
It's so many steps above what I expected that I can't tell you how pleased I am.
You always want to exceed the customer's expectations.
I think it's perfect.
We love the bike, but you really want him to love the bike because it's his bike.
I tell you, I can't wait to see this down Daytona. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. Glad you like it. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see you in Daytona. Okay, all right.
I got to tell you, you cannot cut.
Quarterback I like, Seneca Wallace. I just like him.
You got 4 wheels that kind of make it look like a motorcycle. It balances itself. My feet are off the ground. There's no kickstand. It's got 500 horsepower. It weighs about 1,600 pounds, and it's the fastest thing here. It's the wildest thing here.
Chrysler Corporation has a reputation for doing the wildest concept cars. Look, it's kind of hard to top yourself every year, but this year with the Tomahawk, I mean, it's essentially a Viper motor on wheels, and there isn't much more to it than that. It's absolutely wild. It has absolutely zero chance of making it into production, but it's captured everyone's interest, because if you're a go-fast person, the notion of sitting on a Viper V10 and not much else, it blows your mind. It's absolutely terrific.
It's just one more example of the exciting ideas showing up
Between just handling the road, attacking, and scorching the pavement. Between just moving and riding curves like you're on rails. Between just going and tearing the wind in half. The 227 horsepower, turbocharged, all-wheel drive Subaru WRX. Subaru, driven by what's inside.
After weeks of teasing the nation with commercials,
Mustang is coming. Mustang is coming April 17th.
Ford introduced its new Mustang at the New York World's Fair. The new look, with long hood and short rear deck, caught the imagination of visitors and the media and made the covers of both Time and Newsweek. Initial sales were astounding. Dealers auctioned their first cars, with 15 buyers for every Mustang, more than 100,000 units sold in the first 4 months. The Mustang was an incredible success, but not because of new engineering.
That thing broke absolutely no new ground. It was just a fun package. It looked good. It was marketed like nobody's business. You just had to have one of those if you were the least bit cool back in those days.
But all the marketing in the world didn't sell Car and Driver's editors, who wrote, "For all Ford's talk of total performance, it's still clear that the Mustang has been designed and built to a price."
We weren't very enthusiastic about the car. We treated it as a kind of bogus sports car, which it really was.
The original concept was simple. Deliver a young person's car that would be cheap to build, seat 4, have sporty looks, but sell for less than $2,500. The man behind it, Lee Iacocca.
Give them what they want in the right colors, and they'll buy them, and they'll keep coming back for more, and that's what we're in business to do.
Iacocca was a marketing and sales genius and recognized the potential of that automobile, certainly, and pushed hard for it to be put into production based on considerable reluctance on the part of some people in the Ford management.
While the Mustang concept car had been a 2-seat fiberglass roadster with a mid-engined V4, Iacocca knew this wasn't a car they could build in high volume, but they could recycle the platform from the Falcon.
Well, the Falcon is what the Mustang was based on. It was an existing vehicle. The appearance is nowhere near the same, but the underpinnings, the suspension, basic frame, and unit body came right off of Falcon.
The Falcon had just been kind of a nice, sensible shoes car, and well, gosh, you moved the windshield back and, you know, put some cool styling on it, and boom, folks want them.
And you could have your Mustang your way, with a mile-long list of options.
Started off with a 260 V8, switched to a 289 fairly early in the run. 3-speed manual, 4-speed manual, 3-speed automatic, fastback, coupe, convertible, pony interior, air conditioning, bench seat was even available on those cars.
The Mustang first appeared as a hardtop or convertible. The 2+2 fastback showed up in September of '64. But performance-level horsepower would be slow in coming, as Ford added bigger V8s, and Carroll Shelby raised the performance mark in 1965 with his GT350s.
We're a marginal segment of that marketplace where for every one of the kind of nutcases that was buying the cars to go fast, or 500 secretaries who were out trying to buy them with automatic transmissions and driving them to work.
It would be those secretaries who made the original pony car Motown's biggest hit ever, launching a whole new segment of the marketplace as every other manufacturer scrambled to catch up with Ford and their classic Mustang of 1964.
Led the Packers in tackles
Now
in
with the
02,
Eagles.
and now he's with the Eagles. How about Leon Leonard? 7th rounders.
Well, you talk about the draft. It was 8 rounds for 1 year. It was 12. It was 17 rounds. Not that.
Thanks for joining us. Your first pick, a guy that certainly rose up the board, Nick Barnett, the outside linebacker. How is he going to function in your roster and your football team?
We felt like Nick was a heck of a football player, and we felt like he could come in and play all 3 positions for us. He had good coverage skills. He had a lot of upside. He has a passion for the game. He was able to run. He can play in space. He covered what we're looking for as a linebacker and what we're trying to get better at on defense. And we thought Nick fit exactly what we wanted as a linebacker. We felt like we were real fortunate to get him at the 29th pick.
You know, Mark, nowadays with the salary cap, you're not able to just fill your roster with great players on all sides of the ball, but you got Brett Favre. So it appears to me that you can still be dominant on one side of the ball and try to win a championship. Is that still your focus, or the area that you might have to win a championship with here is still offense?
Well, we feel like we had a good offensive football team. We were able to keep that side of the ball together quite a bit. You know, we did lose a few players on the defensive side. But overall, we think we've helped ourselves defensively. We think we'll have a chance to make a run at it again. We're excited about what we've been able to get done in the draft and in our off-season program, and the ability to get our other players signed. We've had a busy off-season, and I think it's been awfully good for us, and the draft worked out especially good for us today.
Had a lot of talk about Brett Favre and how long he's going to continue playing quarterback. Was there any thought or discussion in your draft room about drafting a quarterback in those early rounds?
Giles, we looked at him like everything. We kept the board in perspective, and we talked about some different quarterbacks. But we feel like Brett's going to be here for a good while, and we're excited about him being here. Obviously, you know, when you've got a player like Brett, it really helps your football team. But we talked about some things, but we ended up going with the defensive players.
All right, Mike Hatley, the Vice President of Football Operations with the Green Bay Packers. Thanks for joining us here, Mark.
Sure. Good talking to y'all.
Centered around Chris Brown, Bobby Purify, and Brian Calhoun, they're freshmen. They amassed 2,800 yards rushing. A lot of that had to do with the lead blocking ability of Brandon Drum. But you say, well, he's a little stiff in his movement. You have to be able to hit a moving target, obviously, at the pro level to be an effective lead blocker. John Ritchie said every lead block's like a snowflake. They're all different. And for John Ritchie, he's accomplished and done a great job in that role in the National Football League coming out of Stanford. Brandon Drum will have to prove that he can match what Ritchie has done as a lead blocker, because obviously this is a forgotten position. It's a position, Mike, that nobody really has an interest in even evaluating players at the fullback spot.
You decide relevant, but the last 5 picks, crowd that's still left here, well, the 10 people that are still left here. There you go. Enjoyed the pick by the Giants. Kevin Walter, quality pick. Let's go up to Chris Fowler.
And I'm joined by NFL consultant Gary Horton, a veteran of many NFL draft rooms over the years. You may have the Mr. Irrelevant pick before the Raiders make it. That could be. But we want to go back and revisit one of the wacky dramas of day one. Once again, the Minnesota Vikings had the appearance of being disorganized, not having the pick ready when the clock ran out. In reality, Gary, tell us the inside story. Trade talks with both Baltimore and Jacksonville to jump up and get Leftwich there.
Well, at number 7, Chris, Minnesota always wanted to move down a little bit because Williams was the guy that they wanted, and they wanted him a little lower than taking him at 7. So they entertained offers at 7 with Jacksonville and with Baltimore, both teams coming up to get Byron Leftwich. Midway through their 15 minutes on the clock, they told Jacksonville, we're going to go with Baltimore. With 32 seconds left, they tell the league, we're going to do a trade with Baltimore. Minnesota calls Ozzie Newsome and say, okay, Ozzie, we'll do the trade. Now you call in the league office. With 32 seconds left, they kind of fold their arms. They say, we're going to get our guy at 10.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're off the clock, and the next we hear Jacksonville's. They call basically Baltimore and say, what happened? Baltimore's answer is, we called the phone lines at the league office, and they were busy.
Get call waiting up here. Are you kidding me? So they missed the chance, Baltimore, to get Leftwich. And after Jacksonville was told, no, we're not going to deal with it, they get their quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in future years, to see if the guy that Baltimore took, Terrell Suggs in the first round, or Kyle Boulder, the other quarterback, how they play out, how Leftwich does in Jacksonville.
If they really wanted Leftwich, I think that's the key. If there was some gamesmanship there. But if that was true, then you're exactly right.
They do like the rest of their draft, but here's what happened here. And again, this is 2 years in a row when Minnesota had to pass in their pick because they weren't ready. Came down just like this.